guys, I hope everybody is doing well this beautiful Tuesday morning. I hope everybody is doing well. I don't know. I'm coming on 2.0 this morning for a variety of reasons, but hi, good morning, guys. I'm glad you guys are at 2.0. We might be doing a few more lives over here as opposed to the main channel because I noticed it's doing something with my videos, so I figured since we have 2.0 we can do the lives over here. It's nice to see you guys this morning. Good morning. Hey Beth, it's nice to see you. Kim, it's nice to see you, baby. Kitty cat, good morning. Good morning. So if you're not on my main channel, and if you were not on my YouTube channel, you probably were not. Good morning, guys. Danielle, I see you there. It's nice to see you. Good morning. I don't know if you guys were watching this on my my main channel, but there was something that was posted in one of the Facebook groups and basically was talking about that the morning that Katie left the house to go look for Sebastian Rogers. If you guys are not familiar with this case, which many of you I believe are, but just for the new people coming in, this is Sebastian Rogers. He's a 15-year-old autistic boy that disappeared literally from his home in Hendersonville, Tennessee on February 26, 2024 and has not been seen since. His mom basically says he went to bed at 9 p.m. She heard a thud at 10 p.m. She went and retired into her room to go to bed around midnight. She wakes up at 6 a.m. like she normally does to go wake up Sebastian to get him ready for work, or get him ready for school rather. And when she went into his room, he was gone. And everything's been a mystery from that point forward. There's been a lot of controversy in this case. There's been a lot of drama in this case, public drama in this case. But we're just trying to figure out what happened that day, the day before and the morning of that he disappeared. And so I'm always constantly going back, to the drawing board and looking at times because I believe that we will find information, good information in the behaviors of the people that were last in and around Sebastian Rogers. And as unfortunate as it is, his mother is the only person that stated she was around him. She stated Chris was not at the house that weekend. He stayed in his camper some 3.5 hours away. She has no idea what happened. All she knows is she believes her son walked out the front door even though he's never run away before. The reason why she came to that conclusion is because he was nowhere in the house. There was no signs of break-in. There was no signs of forced entry. There was no broken glass. There was nothing. And all the doors were locked, and all the doors have keyed locks on them except one door. But there was an event that happened that made me kind of question even that statement. And it was a statement from one of the neighbors talking about when Sebastian went to go collect the mail that weekend. While we know the mail does not run on Sunday, this story was told as it happened on Sunday when they returned from BJ's. But I've always questioned it and wondered, did it happen on Saturday? But I don't know. There was a witness from a neighbor that watched Sebastian go collect mail. And they said that they pulled in, the garage went up, the car came in the driveway, pulled into the garage, and, Sebastian skipped and hopped in a very happy, normal, Sebastian Rogers self down to the mailbox, collected the mail, and, hopped back up to the front door. He couldn't get into the front door, so he walked around to the garage door. My question has always been if he has the key or the combination to get in that front door, and that was customary to him, then why did he not just punch the code in and walk in the front door? He didn't. The door wasn't open, so he skipped down the sidewalk and went into the house through the garage, according to this witness. So the question has always been why. But last night, we started discussing this new topic about whether or not what Katie's behavior was that morning. Okay, that morning she describes several different things. It has changed significantly from one story to another. So we have what we consider a green shirt interview. It was the very first interview that they had given. It was, they had given this 8 days after their child disappeared. 8 days after their child disappeared. It's this interview right here that they gave. Now, this is the one that has all the strange behavior that people picked apart. Predominantly her facial expressions, the fact that she chuckled, the fact that she tried to hide the chuckle, the fact that she bit her tongue during this interview after the chuckle. It's a lot. Like, this was a really, at first, the very first interview that the media did, of course, they chopped it up and made it into a nice little piece for their evening news. But the public pressure of them to release the entire video was extreme. And so this news organization decided to release the entire video in its raw form. And that's when we started seeing some of these odd behaviors from Katie and Chris during this interview that the public was unaware of. And that's how that all happened. But Chris and Katie, they've made this, they've stated this story. And in the green shirt interview, they basically said that she woke up that morning. He was not in bed. She, searched around the house. Within 3 minutes, she called her husband. And her husband was, he was fairly calm and said, did you check here, 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 and here? And then they further state that, he doesn't, this was the interview, I believe it was either this one or the hands interview. And this is where they wouldn't let the media even show their face. They only let them point to their hands. And that was the second interview. And that was to clarify because they came under such heavy fire for the first interview and they wanted to clear their name in the second interview. So their story was that at that morning she woke up, she called her husband within 3 minutes. She says she knows her son doesn't go out of the house by himself, so she didn't go out. This is what she said. I remember her saying she didn't go out of the house to look for him. I remember her specifically saying that in those one of those two interviews. And then by Chronicles of Olivia interview, we have her now saying she was freaking out, she was hysterical, she couldn't talk. That's why her husband had to call law enforcement for her on three-way. She got in her car, she drove around the block. None of this orchestration was ever a part of the original story. And now we're starting to question all of this story. So I wanted to read everything here. I read this last night on my main channel. And of course, I want to explore it a little bit deeper here. Hey, Copper, it's nice to see you. And it's basically saying, if she went outside that morning, was it still dark? Did she turn on any lights? Because we know that there were camera footage outside. A lot of our Ring doorbell and other camera footage actually have audio. So what did law enforcement hear when they were listening to all that darkness? Did they hear anything? Is anything on that audio? So I'm going to read this question in its entirety, and then we'll go back and cut it up just a little. And I'm doing this because I felt like it was too choppy last night on my show because I stopped and talked about it before reading it in its entirety. If Katie went outside to search around the outside of the house, did the neighbor's Ring or security cameras show her searching? It was still dark outside. On February 26, sunrise was 6:21. Of course, she would have turned on the porch and outside lights in case he had fallen and was injured. Allegedly, a neighbor stated their cameras show that Sebastian's bedroom light was on until 11 p.m. on February 25th. They observed other lights that were on and turned off that evening. Did these same cameras show Katie outside searching for Sebastian? What time did they show the lights going on that morning? My security cameras also have audio and I can hear conversations. Did they hear Katie outside calling for Sebastian? Surely Katie would have called out to him. She said she was hysterical just minutes into the search and had to call Chris right away. Then she got into her car, which was parked in the garage, and drove to the high school, which is less than a quarter mile from the house. Chris and Katie said they called 911. Later, when pressed, they said they called the non-emergency number. However, that number isn't on until 8 a.m. Within a few minutes, if you call a non-emergency number with an emergency, they tell you to hang up and call 911. They do not dispatch from that number. Now, CP said they called within a few minutes of finding Sebastian missing. That would be by 6:15 according to their timeline. And dispatch said the call came in at 6:34. So it must have been relayed to dispatch. When the search were there searching, according to the dispatch call, Katie had not yet returned home. Interesting that LE had time to dispatch emergency response teams and they were already actively searching, yet Katie, who had gone a few blocks to the high school, had not yet returned to the house to meet them there. And it says that they will recheck the timeline. I'll recheck the timestamps for the exact time that one of the LE officers asked where the mother was, and other officers gave the answers. It seems like it was after 6:45, but again, I have to recheck. So that's kind of where we are in all of this. There is some really good, wholesome questions that are in this statement. What audio was picked up? And we heard, now I did ask the people on my live last night about this 11 o'clock. Like what I recall when this case was first going on is that I did hear that the lights had gone on and off several times after 9 p.m. the evening that Sebastian went to bed at 9. And so many people had questioned that, but that kind of took a back seat, and now it's kind of coming around, and they're saying 11 o'clock, the bedroom light wasn't turned off at 11 o'clock. I'm not sure if that is totally accurate, because my understanding is it was off, then it came on, then it went off, and I can't recall the last time, but they did say that they do believe that one of the neighbors said it was 11 or 11:30. Betty, good morning, Jules. Betty, didn't KP say she left in her car the morning Sebastian missing and went? Yes, but that was by Chronicles of Olivia interview. If you go back to the green shirt interview and the hands interview, none of that was added. So I do believe that she did leave. But the question that we had last night was, what time did she leave? Because the way that she's describing it to us is, She calls Chris within 3 minutes of finding out Sebastian wasn't there. And by Chronicles of Olivia interview, she says she's hysterical. She didn't say she was hysterical in the other interviews, but by Chronicles of Olivia, she says she's hysterical. She says curse words, like our effing son's not in the house or something like that. It starts getting a little more emotional by say Chronicles of Olivia, or at least they try to portray more concern or emotion by Chronicles of Olivia's interview. But she says she gets in the car and drives around, and on her way home, Chris is calling law enforcement to report their child missing, and he had to do that because she was absolutely utterly hysterical. Well, if she left and the school is only a quarter mile up the road, and she left and the neighbors describe her being gone only 10 minutes, if that is true and she was gone only 10 minutes, she wouldn't have went out searching for her son until after law enforcement was called, after she told them she had been out looking for her son. Because that doesn't make sense. How is she calling law enforcement after she drives around looking for her son when she wasn't home when they arrived, because she was out driving around looking for her son? One time she said she looked for a minute, and then the next time she said she looked for 3 minutes. Right, Jess. So which is it? And really, was she hysterical? We'll never see the body camera footage, but at least for a significant amount of time. But I'd like to see her behavior that morning. Was she truly hysterical when she got back to the house? Obviously, law enforcement was there when she returned home. And how did Kathy Bowersox get there so quickly? So I went through some of the numbers and some of the timeline, and this is where we're at. Although the home of the Bowersox and their home are only 22 minutes away from each other, believe it or not, it is a little bit different for the home. Like, it looks like it takes about 10 minutes to go to the Bowersox, a 10-minute drive to go to the Bowersox than it does for them to drive home. And this is from St. Jude and Yogi. So for the Bowersox, if Chris was at the Bowersox or at his home anytime to help Katie, he would have had to leave home by 1:30 in the morning. He would have had to leave the Bowersox by 1:15 in the morning. We still have to equate a 311 flashlight event or lighting event that looked like it went to or from the construction site that evening, the evening that Sebastian Rogers disappeared. And we also have to equate that the Bowersox vehicle was seen in the area around 5-something in the morning, 5:45, I believe, in the morning, by a store near the school. And that was obviously almost an hour or 30 minutes before the phone even rang to law enforcement. Did the son have a history of running away? Layla, no. No history of running away at all. But see, I question that too. Because he wasn't a runaway. He didn't run away. But when he got upset, did he, leave the house? I don't know. I feel like he has. Because there was one statement when they were looking around that morning. That morning they thought he was just a runaway kid, right? Nobody thought the parents had anything to do with it. Nobody thought anybody had anything to do with it. They thought this kid walked out the front door and would be found within a few hours. Within a few hours. But we got body cam footage that clearly you hear a neighbor talking to a law enforcement agent. And this came from law enforcement. So I know that this statement absolutely happened with law enforcement. 100% hands down. When questioning one of the neighbors, they said that they have found Sebastian up under their car before. And to look under cars. So we have a mom that tells us her son is not a runner, has never run away from home before, ever. Not a runner. She made that crystal clear, didn't she? Not a runner. Never ran away from home, never had problems in the home, doesn't understand why. Of all times, they could understand if they had problems, but they had no problems whatsoever. They can't understand why he just walked out. Why he walked out the door. But a neighbor clearly said he was under his car. He found Sebastian under his car before. Is that running away? Is that hide and go seek? What is all of that about? I don't want to call Katie a liar. I like to call her a liar when I catch her in a lie, which I've caught him in a lot of lies, and I've called them a liar. But I'd like clarification on this, because this is a pretty big question. Was Katie hysterical that morning? What truly transpired that morning? When did she leave the house? What did the neighbors capture on the camera? What audio was heard on those cameras? Jules says, wondering now if Sebastian was so feared he tried to run. I don't know. But we've never, if you notice, nobody's ever really corroborated the mattress or the pressure washer scenario. Like, it's been 2-3 weeks, and outside of the news, the created news, so to speak, I haven't heard any more about it. It sounds like it was just here to inflame everybody and then went away. I'm glad I analyzed that appropriately, because people were talking about it as if it happened, and I kept cautioning everybody. I'm like, whoa, guys, don't be, there's a lot here. We have enough that we've got corroborated about these people. We don't need to be spreading, stuff that we can't corroborate. And an event like that, outside in the public with people screaming, you're going to get attention of the neighbors. Multiple neighbors are going to hear and see this event, and nobody else has corroborated it. Okay, did he run They don't like arguments and fights. They don't like public anything. It seems to me that they're a prideful. I mean, he's an a-hole, but it sounds like they want everybody to look at them and their perfect family, and their perfect family isn't perfect. And it seems like, everybody kept saying that they put their son out. I never believed that, because I feel like that would have been, the neighbors would have been like, oh, look at them having problems. I feel like they would never have wanted to bring that kind of attention to them. Okay, if he did run away, wouldn't they have found him somewhere by searching now? Yeah, they would have. That's why I don't believe he ran. They have no evidence that this boy walked out that front door. None. Actually, they stated just the opposite. They have no scent. That usually, you've got trackers that have been tracking for 20 and 30 years that were out there in the field searching for Sebastian, saying they have never not found a trail or been able to find something at this point. There was literally nothing. 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 It doesn't make sense. He would have popped up by now. Absolutely. He would absolutely. Did you say she called? No, she didn't call. Her husband did. The one that was 3.5 hours away called the non-emergency number. And many people have talked about that. About non-emergency number not being manned. I don't know if that's true. But you know what? Tennessee's weird, because I've never in my life ever heard of closing law enforcement offices down on the weekends. Apparently Tennessee does that. I've heard that because it was polarized with Riley Strain in Nashville, Tennessee. Apparently his brothers, from the Sigma Chi, I can't remember which one were they from. Kappa, I can't remember. They were from some type of fraternity. I can't remember what fraternity they were from, but it was maybe a Kappa Delphi or something odd like that. I'm not sure I'm not sure really what fraternity they were from, but they went to a law enforcement. They went to the police station, and the police station was locked and closed. I'm like, what? And apparently this is how they do it. Like, you've got to call a number and meet an officer or something. It's not that they don't have their buildings are closed. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't know about you, but our law enforcement offices are like staffed around the clock. Like, you can go into our police station at midnight. You can go into our police. Like, we're not a huge community. We're not something like Nashville by any stretch of the imagination. And you can go into any law enforcement body here in our town and go talk to an officer or fill out a report inside a safe place like a police station. I mean, what if people needed a safe place? What if they're being followed? You can't even run into your own cop station for protection. I've never heard of such crap before. So I don't know if they had people that man their non-emergency number, because here it's weird, because my experience with this whole non-emergency number thing is much different than what I know Tennessee law to be, because I've never known law enforcement to close down their offices. I've never heard that stuff in my life. I've never known that law enforcement in Tennessee truly believes that law enforcement happens between Monday and Friday between 8 and 5 p.m. What? Like, I could literally go on for days about the changes that Tennessee needs to be had, but you know what? I'm an outsider looking in, and how dare me come into another state and say what they need to be doing? Well, I'm in your state a lot. That's the first thing, which I don't want to be. You know? I'm in Tennessee. I've got 4 major cases in Tennessee right now, all not closed, all cold. All cold. All 4 of my cases. This one's the 4th one. And I feel like it's going cold because we have no law enforcement. I'm dropping on my main channel here on TikTok. I hope you guys all support it. But I'll be dropping a video today addressing, and one of the reasons why I'm over here doing my live is because I'm going to be dropping my video today about law enforcement at noon on my main channel. So I hope you guys go over there and watch that and make that go viral. Because, you know, nobody knows anything. And what if this goes cold and we have no answers and we were ghosted by law enforcement? That's pretty crappy. That is like, I have no words. We're in an election season. Like literally an election season. And I don't know how this is a business card on why to keep the current politicians in office. Nobody's saying anything. Nobody's doing anything. And I think we can all feel like this case is going nowhere. It's literally going. We're 3 months in. We don't even have forensics. This case is done. And law enforcement doesn't want to answer to that, in my opinion. They're saying they're turning over every rock. I do believe. I mean, I do want to be very, very. I want to be crystal clear. I think we're going to be using that a lot. I want to be crystal clear. I believe law enforcement is doing everything they can. But how many balls were dropped at the beginning that's preventing them from bringing this ball, you know, getting the touchdown? It's always the effed up crap up front. They need to be acting. They need to be treating these parents like they're criminals while acting like they're victims. And the reason why they have to do that is because they never know which ones are the criminals and which ones are the victims. And if you go in there thinking they're all victims, that's your first mess up. Right there. Because innocent parents, they'll understand it. They'll understand it. They already have to go through the ringer. You might as well just do it up front. No parent should have to go through a missing child. But you got to start getting things signed, getting permissions up front, getting stuff done. And when they tell you can do it, do it. Is it a little more money? Yeah, it is. You're right. It costs money to do this stuff. That's why I tell people to fund their law enforcement. When I start hearing that they don't have resources to do this or their resources are running out because guys, when they call in like TBI or the FBI or the Secret Service or the Department of Defense or things like that, those are temporary resources, okay? Those resources are kind of a hit it and quit it type of thing, okay? You get all these resources up front and you've got to do the most amount of work with all the resources you have up front to acquire what you need as quickly as possible because once those resources are gone, they are gone. Will they be there in an advisory role? Of course. But they're no longer there. And these communities don't have the funding for this because I don't know what they're doing in Tennessee. But I just feel like Tennessee is bringing in tax revenue. So I'd have to say mismanagement is probably my top contributor to why we have problems with our law enforcement out in Tennessee. Just a thought. Mismanagement. The culprit to a lot of crap we deal with in our communities. So we have resources dwindling. We have leads dwindling. We have extinct searches. We got beautiful ladies out there in the woods that need help with more searchers and more bodies to help. We need to have more concentrated searches in areas that make sense. For example, I look at maps. Let me just see if I can find it. these are kind of some of the stuff that I'm talking about. It's going to take me a minute because this is from like forever and ever ago. Oh wait, I think I did fold down. But we have a whole, like, what I call a Koberger route, It's where it's the back drive, Let me see if I can find it. Something like this. Get out of the way. Let me pull this up. Something like that, right? Where this is the ride to work. Right here is like this red line down here is like the ride to work. There's a loop, where they can take a long way around and get back on and keep going. These are the types of things that I'm looking for right here that would make sense, that would keep somebody moving in the right direction, but give them enough privacy or security to do something, that could be disposal-wise. You see that right there? So I'm always constantly looking at weird areas of what would make sense if you're kind of jammed up and you need to do something. Does it mean that this is where it's at, that's what? No, but there's a reason why I chose that area. So there is a philosophy, there is a reasoning behind the areas that are being chosen. Do they make sense? If they don't make sense, if nobody would go there, if it's like so far out of the way, the timing doesn't work, that this doesn't work, then you're looking in an area that probably has the lowest probability of producing results. So we're wanting to increase our probability of producing results. You guys understand? But there's one nuance that's really kind of sitting in my soul that's going to make this even more and more difficult for us. And again, it comes down to the fact that Chris left. Okay? Chris left. Chris left and was gone for 17 hours. It doesn't matter when he left. It matters that he left. And he was the only one that did leave. And he was the only one that did leave an active open investigation and disappear for 17 hours. So that's got to be put in this, because I've said that there's a reason why that camper was polarized by Chris. He had no business going back. I mean, with your whole life falling apart, you got a missing kid. Nobody gives a rat's ass about a stupid camper sitting at an RV park. You pick up the phone, you give them a credit card, let them charge you whatever lot rent they need to charge you. Keep it safe. Can you please monitor my camper while I'm gone? I got a missing kid. This is detrimental to me. Is there anything you can do to help? Certainly, Mr. Proudfoot, we're here. We'll take care of your camper. We'll have our guy, travel around and just keep an eye on it. Right? Everybody's willing to come together to help. I guarantee that. For a missing kid, you bet your ass. You bet your ass. So this camper is polarized because of Chris's behavior. So what does the camper mean? I don't know. All I know is that camper means something to me. What does it mean yet? I have no idea. But it's important. Why? I don't know. It's important. You know why? Because we don't know. That's what makes it important. We don't know. It doesn't make sense. Why would you leave to go get a camper? Why would you stay gone for 17 hours? These are the reasons why I know it's going to be a key factor. Because it makes no sense. It's an oddball. It's out there in left field. It's an oddity in this story. Who gives a crap about a stupid camper? And then what makes it even more of an oddity and polarizes that oddity is the fact that they went and got a camper, yet turned around, packed up that camper, and went right back to that same spot. That, again, is an oddity, polarizing that RV or that camper. Why? Because there's no purpose for them to have gone and got the camper. It doesn't make sense. It is an oddity. And only you guys would know. I mean, we've got to look at all of our personalities, right? Because my personality is different. We know there's multiple personality types out there in the world. And so you have to identify with your own personality type. If you had a missing child, would you care about your camper? Maybe you would. Maybe you're paranoid that somebody is going to rob you blind. Maybe that's your experience in life, and maybe you understand the need to go get this camper. Maybe for your personality that is the way it is. But I have to think the majority of us are like, who gives a shit? I mean, I'm kind of like that. If it came down to my car, if it came down to my house, I'll deal with it later. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I forgot to pay my lot rent and it's towed to a storage lot. I have to pay, $500 to get it out of Hawk. Okay, so what? And not only that, but if it did get towed or if it did go there, I'm sure law enforcement down here could probably call law enforcement up there, and I'm sure he would have to pay some money, but they would probably treat him fair or waive it all together for the situation. It just I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's an oddity. I think that this whole thing, I wonder if people, because I know people do have friends that are in that neighborhood, I wonder if they did hear anything on those, because when we look at the Idaho 4, there was a camera on their house. It was 50 feet away. It was on the house next to their house, but the way that the corners of the house kind of sat, they were only like 50 feet from each other. And so their camera actually picked up noises on the inside of 1122 King Road. And it sounded like you could hear the dog barking in the background and you could hear a thud. And Lord knows what else they heard on that. That's just what we heard they heard. And it sounds like that held water, that they definitely heard something on the neighbor's camera. But the problem here is Katie and Chris aren't close to their neighbors. These are nice, large, they're not estate lots, but they're more in line with estate lots versus regular residential lots because they are larger in size. They have larger homes that sit on them. Chris and Katie's home is somewhere around 3,400 square feet if I had to, get my bearings with it. But the RV have thin walls. They do have thin walls, but I wouldn't... Are you talking about, like, what purpose would it be? If something happened to Sebastian, I feel that if Chris was involved or had a hand in helping cover up anything, he would have had to come into town, and he would have most likely been the first person that would have, being the man, that would have had to take the problem and deal with the problem. So according to my calculation, if that was the case, if that theory is what truly transpired, then he wouldn't have had time to really dispose or do anything with Sebastian other than like basically pull off the side of the road, throw him out, and keep going. So I always thought that he took Sebastian, and this is just a theory, in one of my theories, I always felt that he took Sebastian back to the camper and went on to work to portray this normal work day. And then he ended up having a bad attitude, getting kicked off work, and went home. And he said he arrived home a little after 1 p.m. that day. Again, not leaving him a whole bunch of time if he did have Sebastian to get rid of him. So I feel like the reason why he had to go back and get the camper is that there was something incriminating in that camper or Sebastian that he had to still take care of. And that left him 17 hours. Well, actually 10 full hours to do something. Because he was gone 17 hours, and we know the trip there and the trip back, round trip, would have been a total of 7 hours. So he had 10 hours. 10 hours. That's a lot of time. That's an awful lot of time, guys. And we can't find Sebastian at all? And Chris was gone for 10 solid hours unaccounted for? I don't know. That's the problem I have. Katie wasn't gone. She doesn't have a gap of 10 hours after this event. Seth doesn't have a gap after this event of 10 hours. The only person that does is Chris. And according to everybody, Chris wasn't even home. So did something happen that Katie did and she called Chris freaking out? Maybe not knowing what to do, maybe having to stay on the phone for 3 hours to be calmed down while help arrived? I don't know. There was a 3-hour conversation, and a lot of people say, well, we talked to our husband, but see, they do that regularly. Was this a regular event for Katie? Katie's had so many times to answer that question and never has. She never even added to the end like we do every night. You know, I had a 3-hour conversation with my husband. We have every night from 9 to midnight. We've never heard that come out of her mouth. We're assuming that. She must be doing it every night for those that want to assume that. I assume the opposite. I don't think they carry on conversations that long every night. I don't know why. I just don't feel it. But it's my experience, right? Because I don't carry on conversations for 3 hours. But say, like the wives of truckers that do carry on conversations for 3 hours with their husbands. They understand it. Their experience is different. They can say, oh yeah, we can talk. Right? I don't get to see my husband. The only time I get to, really feel like I'm with him is on the phone with him because he's a long haul truck driver. And we have to remember Katie and Chris were separated because he was not a long haul truck driver, but he was, not working and being able to come home at night. So, you could put that into context of a long haul truck driver because he was gone for weeks at a time. So was she carrying on these regular 3-hour conversations with her husband? It's possible. And that's all I'm going to say. It is possible. But I would like corroboration. You know what I'm saying? Like, because with my women, the women that reached out to me that talked about their husband, this is a regular occurrence. It's not like a one and done thing. They didn't just talk to him like, Monday for 3 hours and only talk to him for 15 minutes the rest of the week. According to them, this is a normal and customary for them. So they do this regularly. So I'm curious if there is the regular part of these long-winded conversations that Katie does have. We heard nothing. Katie and Chris. Yeah, Katie. I feel Katie and Chris have a hand in it, and they're guilty of something. No way most would chat for 3 hours. Yeah, but believe it or not, because I do have a good trucker community. I don't know how I was so blessed with the truckers on YouTube, but I do have truckers a trucker community in my true crime on YouTube. One of them is Baby Yoda Trucker. I mean, that doesn't tell you, like, I got a trucker community, right? And their wives are in my chat. Maybe, I don't know if they're stay-at-home wives or they work or whatnot. But they talk. They let me know if I make a mistake. Like when I said there's no way that people could talk for 3 hours, they are like, wait a minute, Betty. There actually is. We do it with our husbands all the time, and it's like, okay, well. Maybe we need to look at this. And then I'm trying to say, well, does their situation apply to Katie's situation? And honestly, it kind of does. Because she's away from her husband for extended periods. They're away from their husbands for extended periods. So it comes down to whether they regularly talked for 3 hours for me. Because that's the one thing that my trucker ladies drilled into me is that it was a regular occurrence for them. Not just one and done. I sat and spoke to my husband for 3 hours. I would get nothing done. I know. Well, Becca, the crazy thing is when she's on Nancy Grace, she's saying she's carrying this conversation on with her husband for 3 hours while studying for school. And I'm like, huh? It's been so many years. I haven't been in college. Okay, I'm sorry, but I haven't been in college in 20 years. I'm not going to lie. Okay, it's been over 20 years since I've been in college. Okay? And I worked 2 jobs. I was a party animal. I did crazy shit. I was at the clubs dancing, popping God knows what, doing God knows what with God knows who. Okay? Young, I had energy. What can I say? I had energy. So I was working 2 jobs, partying, and going to school. Believe it or not. Yes, going to school to boot. And I can tell you with all of that, the one thing I couldn't do was study while talking to my girlfriends on the phone. I'm like, guys, I got to go. I got to get this work done. Now, mind you, I graduated with honors, okay? Don't ask me how I did it. Again, working 2 jobs, partying on every weekend, and going to college. I surprised myself, to be honest with you. But I made Dean's List. I made honor roll. I mean, I don't know if I slept. I think that was probably my problem. I know. But one thing I can't do is study and talk. My brain doesn't work that way. That's why I can't read your comments and carry on a conversation. Like I see some people out here that do these shows and they're reading the comments, talking, answering the questions, keeping their chain of, their whole entire, their story together. My brain doesn't work. I can walk and chew gum, but I can't walk, chew gum, and tap my head, okay? I hope Seth takes legal action. He may lose his job, but it is what it is. I think everybody's kind of going back to their job. The worst, from what I hear, because it sounds like Chris is going back to his job. It sounds like, Seth is starting to go back to his job. It sounds like, I don't know. I thought I heard through the grapevine that Katie, I think somebody told me that Katie, I think they came in here the other day and said Katie's back to work. And everybody in here was raising hell, because it's like, how the hell do you go back to work? Like, I don't even know if Riley Strain's mom can keep herself together to go back to work. Like I don't understand. And we see Seth. I mean, Seth doesn't want. I mean, he took off work. And this is what really pisses me off. Seth took off work and to search for his son. To search for his son, to sleep in a freaking car and search for his son. And Katie and Chris took time off work to sit on their ass. It angers me. It angers me. It angers me. Sebastian deserved better than that. He deserves so much better than that. All I have a hand in, they need to say something. They all had a hand in, they need to say something. I'm a little bit separated. The reason why I say so many things, do I think Seth is a perfect man? No, I don't think he's a perfect man, because I'm not a perfect person. You're not a perfect person. We're not perfect people. We've made mistakes. And I guarantee if there's any parent in this chat, I guarantee they've made, even if your child is grown, you can sit there and say you never made no mistakes, that you were a perfect parent, that you didn't punish your child just a little too much, or you didn't lose your cool with your child, or you wish you would have done things a little differently here or a little differently there. We all could probably use some improvement, right? And no matter who you are, the human element always can use some improvement. Does it mean that he didn't love his kid? It doesn't. Did he have a hand in it? He didn't. Did he know about what was going on inside that house? He didn't. If he did, he wouldn't have had to pay so much money to get reports from CPS that he should have been advised of by CPS, and they failed to advise him. He literally had no clue. His son basically told him when he was at his house a few times that he didn't want to go back. And Seth, asked him, why don't you want to go back, son? And he wouldn't tell his dad why. His dad had no clue what was going on in this house, despite what you guys think. And the proof is in the pudding. You know what I mean by that? I mean that if he did honestly know something and didn't say something, he wouldn't have made that statement about his son telling him that he didn't want to go back, but he didn't tell him why, even though he asked. He said that at the very beginning of this case. And it was supported by him hiring an attorney and getting the reports he needed from CPS that they failed to advise him of. Because he is the father with the rights to that child. They are 50-50 parents with this child. CPS can't tell Katie one thing without telling their father, because they are 50-50 parents. Okay, so that's why they don't have child support, because they have agreed to come together and split everything 50-50, whatever the cost is. They didn't need that. And they even said, if he needs to go to a camp, if he needs some shoes, whatever they need, they all just take care of it. So, we do have corroboration that Seth had no idea what was going on inside that home. Okay? He's made statements early on. Those statements are supported by his action of hiring an attorney to get the documents he needed to find out. And I can tell you, when he read those reports and he went on the Pascal show, you could see the anger in that man's eyes. The absolute anger in his eyes. of what he read in those reports, even though he didn't tell us what was in those reports. So I have to think it wasn't good. You know? So there's that. All right, guys, something to think about. Was Katie on recordings? Was she not? Did she leave? When did she leave? Did she leave after she called law enforcement? Or did she leave before? If she left after, was it to make them think she was out searching for her son like a dutiful mom would be doing? Lots of questions here, but very limited answers. God bless.